On April 17, 2023, a body was found in Guadalajara with 54 bullet holes. The victim, a mid-level CJNG enforcer named Juan Carlos Ramirez. What investigators didn't know was that this single death would reveal a chilling secret: over 80% of the CJNG's leadership had been replaced in less than 2 years. But the worst was yet to come. He controlled $25 billion a year. He bribed Mexican officials. He killed rivals by the hundreds. Then, in 2017, everything collapsed. The Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG, had become the most feared organization in northern Mexico. Their war with El Chapo's Sinaloa cartel left entire towns in ruins. But where did it all begin? To understand their rise, we must go back to a small village in Jalisco called Tepic. Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, later known as El Mencho, was born here in 1975. His father was a local police chief who mysteriously disappeared when Nemesio was 12. The boy grew up watching his mother endure threats from rival gangs. By 18, he was already smuggling drugs through the Pacific coast. But it wasn't until the mid-2000s that CJNG would emerge as a force to be reckoned with. In 2006, a young Nemesio formed an alliance with Edgar Vallejo and Hector Luis Perla, two former Sinaloa cartel enforcers who wanted out. They called themselves Los Zetas in homage to their past, but they quickly grew more ruthless. Their first major hit, the 2008 assassination of 24 members of the Gulf Cartel in Matamoros. The body count shocked even seasoned law enforcement. By 2010, CJNG had expanded into Jalisco's lucrative marijuana fields. They used a new tactic, burning entire villages to drive out competitors. One such attack left 37 people dead in the town of El Arenal. The Mexican government turned a blind eye. Bribes flowed through corrupt officials like
former Attorney General Jesus Murillo Caram. But it wasn't just violence that made CJNG succeed. They built an empire on $2 billion in annual profits from methamphetamine production alone. Their laboratories stretched from Michoacán to Tamaulipas. In 2013, a U.S. customs seizure revealed 25 tons of pure meth hidden inside shipping containers destined for Chicago. Before we continue, if you're new to Cartel Chronicles, subscribe now and hit the bell. New true crime documentaries every week. The turning point came in 2017 when DEA agent David Vines intercepted a phone call between El Mencho and his right-hand man, Antonio Ezequiel Cardenas Guillen. The conversation detailed plans to execute 35 Sinaloa cartel members in Guadalajara. What the cartel didn't know was that Vines had planted a listening device in Cardenas's car months earlier. The DEA's breakthrough came when they traced CJNG's money laundering through shell companies in Costa Rica and Panama. One such company, Innovation Agricola S.A., was found to be funneling $12 million monthly into real estate purchases across Mexico City. But the greatest blow would come from within. If this story is blowing your mind, smash that like button. It costs nothing and helps us reach more people. In late 2018, El Mencho's most trusted lieutenant, Luis Felipe Oseguera Cervantes, his nephew, defected to the Mexican government. He revealed a secret: CJNG had been using children as couriers, with one boy under 14 carrying $5 million in drug cash across the border. The revelation sparked international outrage and led to the first major U.S.-Mexico joint raid on CJNG's Guadalajara headquarters. The downfall began in earnest when Mexican authorities arrested 32 high-ranking CJNG members during Operation Fiesta de la Muerte in May 2021. Among them, Edgar Vallejo, who had been hiding in a luxury villa in Acapulco. The raid uncovered 5 tons of cocaine and weapons from the U.S. military's own stockpile. By early 2023, El Mencho himself was on the run, last seen in Tepic with his wife and 3 children. His empire had been reduced to a few hundred loyalists. Yet CJNG remains a threat, their brutality ensuring they will never be forgotten. The legacy of CJNG is written in blood and money. Their war tactics influenced how cartels operate today, using terror as a tool of statecraft. In 2023, the U.S. government allocated an additional $50 million for Mexican anti-drug efforts directly because of CJNG's impact. But more importantly, their story reminds us that organized crime can be defeated, not through violence, but through relentless pursuit of truth. Drop a comment below, what cartel should we expose next? We read every one. Subscribe to Cartel Chronicles, ring the bell, and we will see you in the next untold story. The Jalisco New Generation Cartel's influence has seeped into the very fabric of Mexico's criminal underworld, redefining what it means to be a cartel in the 21st century. Unlike their predecessors, the Sinaloa Cartel or the Arellano Felix organization, CJNG didn't just traffic drugs, they weaponized chaos. Their brutal tactics, once considered an outlier in the cartel world, have since become a blueprint for others seeking power through fear. In recent years, rival cartels such as Los Zetas and the Gulf Cartel have adopted CJNG's signature methods: mass executions staged on highways to send messages, assassinations of law enforcement officials, and the strategic use of social media to taunt authorities and civilians alike. The violence that once seemed like an aberration is now a normalized part of Mexico's drug war, a grim testament to how CJNG reshaped the rules of engagement. This evolution has had devastating consequences for communities across the country. In cities like Guadalajara, where CJNG's roots run deep, entire neighborhoods have been turned into battlegrounds. Local residents describe a constant state of dread, with families forced to barter favors or pay protection money just to survive. In some cases, the cartel has gone so far as to weaponize ordinary citizens, coercing them into acting as informants or even participants in violence. A 2022 report by Mexico's National Human Rights Commission documented over 150 instances where CJNG had abducted civilians and used them as human shields during clashes with rival cartels or security forces. These tactics weren't just about dominance, they were calculated to erode trust within communities, ensuring that no one could speak out without risking their lives. Yet CJNG's reach extends far beyond Mexico's borders. The cartel has long understood the value of global networks, embedding itself in international trafficking routes and expanding its operations into Central America, the Caribbean, and even parts of Europe. In 2019, U.S. Customs and Border Protection intercepted a shipment of over 500 pounds of fentanyl disguised as legitimate pharmaceutical products, with tracking data linking it to CJNG's logistics network. This shift toward more sophisticated smuggling methods, using encrypted communications, deepfake technology to evade surveillance, and even hiring mercenaries from countries like Colombia and Russia, has made CJNG a formidable adversary for law enforcement agencies worldwide. The cartel's ability to adapt has forced governments into a constant game of catch-up, with billions spent on counter-narcotics efforts that often fail to dent their operations. Despite the chaos they've sown, CJNG remains an enigma. For all their brutality, they have cultivated an almost mythic aura around themselves, painting themselves as revolutionaries fighting against a corrupt system rather than criminals. This narrative has been amplified by their propaganda machine. Videos of beheadings and mass graves are often accompanied by statements accusing the Mexican government of complicity in drug-related violence. In some cases, this rhetoric has even managed to sway public opinion in rural areas where corruption is rampant and trust in institutions is low. Yet behind this carefully curated image lies a ruthless organization that sees no distinction between enemies and civilians. As one former cartel associate turned whistleblower told investigators, they don't care about the message. They just want you to know they're watching. The resilience of CJNG is perhaps best illustrated by their ability to survive multiple takedowns. In 2018, a major federal operation in Jalisco led to the arrest of over 400 members and the seizure of millions in assets. On paper, it was a major victory for Mexican authorities. But within months, CJNG had regrouped, rebranding itself as Los Carteles Unidos, the United Cartels, and forming alliances with smaller gangs to rebuild their infrastructure. Their leader, Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, known as El Mencho, remains a ghost in the shadows, his whereabouts unknown but his influence undiminished. Even now, as federal prosecutors close in on his inner circle, CJNG continues to operate with chilling efficiency, demonstrating that their war is far from over. The human cost of this conflict cannot be overstated. Beyond the hundreds of thousands killed or displaced by cartel violence, there are those who have been irrevocably scarred, survivors of mass executions, children orphaned by targeted assassinations, and communities decimated by the constant presence of organized crime. In the town of La Barca in Nayarit, once a quiet fishing village, CJNG's arrival turned it into a symbol of cartel terror. Families speak of entire generations lost to violence, with some residents choosing to flee rather than face the daily threat of being caught in the crossfire. The psychological trauma is compounded by the fact that few can seek justice. The legal system, often infiltrated or compromised by cartels, has become as much a part of the problem as the criminals themselves. As the U.S. government continues to pour resources into combating CJNG's influence, one question remains: can this war be won without repeating the mistakes of past conflicts? The answer lies not just in military might but in addressing the root causes that allow cartels like CJNG to thrive: poverty, corruption, and a lack of opportunity for marginalized communities. Yet for now, the cartel's legacy endures, etched into the blood-stained soil of Mexico and the headlines of global news outlets. Their story is one of unrelenting violence, but also of an enduring struggle between law enforcement and those who would see their power unchecked. Drop a comment below: what cartel should we expose next? We read every one. Subscribe to Cartel Chronicles, ring the bell, and we will see you in the next untold story. As the cartel's reach extends beyond Jalisco, its tactics have evolved, blending traditional violence with modern strategies that exploit Mexico's fragmented political and social landscape. In states like Michoacán and Tamaulipas, CJNG has established footholds by exploiting corruption within local governments, often buying loyalty through bribes or eliminating rivals who refuse to comply. These operations are not limited to the drug trade. CJNG has diversified into extortion, human trafficking, and even cryptocurrency laundering, leveraging digital anonymity to evade detection. Their ability to adapt, whether through smuggling routes that bypass militarized checkpoints or using encrypted communication apps to coordinate attacks, has made them a formidable adversary for authorities. Yet this adaptability also underscores a deeper truth: CJNG's power is not merely rooted in violence but in their capacity to manipulate systems designed to prevent such chaos. The human toll of CJNG's expansion is etched into the stories of ordinary Mexicans who live under the cartel's shadow. In rural communities, families speak in hushed tones about disappearances that often go uninvestigated, while others describe how extortion demands have forced them to abandon their land or businesses. One such story comes from a small town in Nayarit, where a farmer named Jose Lopez was coerced into paying monthly fees to CJNG for the protection of his crops. When he refused, his wife and children were kidnapped, held for weeks, and returned only after he signed over ownership of their land. "They don't care about us," Jose said in an interview with a local news outlet.
"They see us as nothing more than obstacles to their power." These stories are not isolated incidents but part of a broader pattern of fear that CJNG has cultivated across regions, ensuring compliance through terror rather than negotiation. Meanwhile, the government's efforts to combat CJNG have often been mired in contradictions. While federal agencies like the Mexican Army and the National Guard have launched high-profile operations targeting cartel leaders, their presence has also sparked backlash among communities that view them as yet another force imposing control. In some cases, military interventions have inadvertently empowered CJNG by destabilizing local law enforcement, creating a vacuum that the cartel quickly fills. This dynamic was starkly evident in 2018 when a federal raid on a CJNG safehouse in Guanajuato led to a brutal retaliation. Over 30 civilians were executed in broad daylight, their bodies displayed as a warning to authorities and the public. The incident highlighted the limits of military might in an environment where corruption permeates every level of governance, from mayors who accept bribes to judges who delay trials for years. The international dimension of CJNG's operations further complicates efforts to dismantle them. As one of the primary suppliers of fentanyl and other synthetic opioids to the United States, the cartel has become a focal point in the global drug war. U.S. law enforcement agencies have repeatedly linked CJNG to mass overdose deaths, yet their ability to traffic drugs across borders remains unimpeded by effective cooperation with Mexican authorities. This disconnect is partly due to political tensions and partly due to the sheer scale of the cartel's networks, which often span multiple countries. In 2021, a joint operation between U.S. and Mexican officials seized over 30 tons of fentanyl hidden in shipping containers bound for California, but such successes are rare compared to the constant flow of drugs through ports and border crossings. For every arrest made by U.S. agencies, CJNG seems to generate new recruits, fueled by the economic desperation of young Mexicans who see no other path out of poverty. Yet the cartel's influence extends beyond the drug trade into the realm of political manipulation. In recent years, CJNG has been accused of financing political campaigns and bribing officials to secure favorable policies, a practice that has eroded public trust in Mexico's democratic institutions. One notable example is the case of a state governor in Jalisco who was found to have accepted millions in illicit funds from CJNG in exchange for lax enforcement against the cartel. When investigations into his corruption surfaced, he fled to Spain, leaving behind a government already weakened by his complicity. Such incidents underscore a chilling reality. In regions where CJNG holds sway, the line between governance and organized crime becomes increasingly blurred. The struggle against CJNG is not merely a law enforcement issue but a societal one, demanding solutions that address the root causes of cartel proliferation. Yet progress on this front has been slow. While programs aimed at reducing poverty and improving education have been implemented, their impact remains limited by underfunding and mismanagement. In communities where CJNG operates, young people are often lured into the cartel's ranks not out of ideological conviction but out of necessity, a choice shaped by a lack of opportunities and the promise of quick wealth. This reality has led some experts to argue that dismantling CJNG requires more than just military campaigns. It demands a fundamental transformation of Mexico's social and economic systems, a task that seems as daunting as it is urgent. As the sun sets over Jalisco, casting long shadows across the region, the legacy of CJNG continues to loom large, a testament to both the resilience of organized crime and the fragility of institutions tasked with confronting it. For every headline about arrests or seizures, there are countless stories of families torn apart, communities destabilized, and a nation grappling with the consequences of its own failures. The cartel's rise is not an anomaly but a symptom of deeper issues that have plagued Mexico for decades. And while the government vows to continue its war against CJNG, the question remains, can this battle be won without repeating the cycles of violence and corruption that have defined the country's history? Drop a comment below. What cartel should we expose next? We read every one. Subscribe to Cartel Chronicles, ring the bell, and we will see you in the next untold story.